The stars burned cold above the broken moon, each light flickering through the dust and smoke that hung in orbit. The war had lasted for many years, stretching across planets, stations, and countless skies. For the humans, it was a fight for survival. For the THRYLL, it was a fight for dominance. Both sides had lost thousands, but neither surrendered. The galaxy was filled with wreckage of fleets, broken ships drifting without power, silent testaments to battles that never truly ended. Captain Ryan Hale had grown up in this war. He was not old, but his eyes carried the weight of too many battles. He had flown fighters since his early training days, moving from one front line to another. Victory was rare, and survival was never promised. His most recent mission had been a desperate chase across the asteroid belt near the broken moon. A group of THRYLL raiders had attacked a human convoy, and Ryan had pursued them through the chaos. His squad had been scattered, and he had faced one THRYLL craft alone. The dogfight had been fast and merciless. Lasers cut through stone and ice, explosions lit the dark space, and his fighter had taken a direct hit. With failing controls, Ryan had guided his craft toward the surface of the moon. He did not expect to survive the crash, but training and instinct carried him through. The fighter smashed into the barren ground, tearing through rock and metal, until it slid to a halt in a canyon of black stone. When Ryan opened his eyes, pain struck every part of his body. The cockpit was shattered, smoke curling through broken glass, sparks dancing from dying circuits. He unbuckled himself and dragged his weak legs out of the wreck. His suit kept him alive in the thin air, but the oxygen warning flashed in the corner of his visor. Supplies would not last long. For a moment, he thought he was alone on the moon. Silence stretched in every direction, broken only by the distant groan of shifting rocks. He scanned the horizon, saw no movement, and leaned against a boulder to steady himself. He considered sending a distress signal, but he knew the risks. If humans picked it up, he might be saved. If THRYLL intercepted it, he would be hunted. As he rested, a sound reached his ears, faint, almost too soft to notice. A clicking rhythm, irregular, weak, but not natural. Ryan froze. He had heard that sound before, in combat recordings and battlefields. It was the sound of THRYLL communication. He tightened his grip on his sidearm and slowly moved toward the source. Each step echoed in the canyon, and the faint clicking grew louder. At the base of a collapsed ridge, he saw movement. His eyes widened in shock. There, half buried under stone and debris, lay the THRYLL Queen. Her body was larger than any soldier he had seen, her carapace once shining with strength, now cracked and dull. Her breathing was shallow, each rise and fall of her chest slow and painful. One wing was torn, and her limbs trembled with weakness. She was the heart of the enemy, the mind behind the swarms that had ravaged human colonies. Every soldier had been taught to hate her, to dream of the day she would fall. And here she was, broken and helpless, only a few steps away. Ryan's hand shook as he raised his weapon. A single shot could end her life. A single decision could end the war. His orders were clear, and his training demanded it. Yet something in the moment felt different. He expected rage, but he saw none. He expected fury, but her eyes, large and faintly glowing, held only exhaustion. For the first time, Ryan saw not the monster of human stories, but a being close to death. Her faint clicks carried no threat, only weakness. He did not understand the language, but he felt the tone. She was not calling soldiers or preparing for battle. She was struggling to stay alive. The silence pressed heavily around them. Ryan lowered his weapon slightly, though his heart still pounded. He had to make a choice. If he left her, she would die, and the war might end. If he helped her, he would be seen as a traitor by his own people. The thought burned inside him. Yet deep within, another thought grew louder. How many battles had been fought? How many lives lost? What if this moment, strange and fragile, could mean something different? He stepped closer, scanning the ground for danger. No THRYLL soldiers appeared. No human forces arrived. It was only him and the Queen, trapped together in the ruins of war. Ryan crouched and looked at her injuries. Her breathing was ragged, her chest plate cracked open slightly, and her limbs too weak to move the debris pinning her down. Without thinking too long, he set his weapon aside and began pulling away the stones. They were heavy, sharp, and tore at his gloves, but he pushed them away one by one. The Queen watched him silently, her faint click steady, almost rhythmic now. At last, he cleared enough for her to move slightly. She struggled, then collapsed again. Ryan quickly reached into his survival kit and pulled out a water capsule. He hesitated for a breath, then placed it near her mouth. She drank slowly, her mandibles trembling with effort. When she finished, her eyes met his once more. For a moment, Ryan felt as though they understood each other without words. Two enemies, brought together by chance, bound by survival. The cold wind swept through the canyon, and Ryan realized the danger was not over. Patrols from either side could arrive. His oxygen was running low. Supplies would not last. Yet leaving her behind no longer felt right. Against all logic, he felt responsible for her now. He dragged part of the wreckage to form a makeshift shelter, shielding them from the wind and hiding their forms from distant scanners. The Queen shifted weakly inside, curling her limbs close. Ryan sat near the entrance, weapon back in his hand, eyes scanning the horizon. The stars above continued to shine, distant and cold, unaware of the fragile bond forming on the broken moon. The war still raged beyond, but here, in the silence of the canyon, a human and the alien Queen rested side by side. Ryan closed his eyes for a moment, though sleep would not come easily. He knew tomorrow would bring new dangers, new choices. But for now, he had made one decision. He had spared her life. And that choice would change everything. The cold moon stretched endlessly in silence. The canyon walls towered like dark shadows, their surfaces sharp and broken from centuries of meteor strikes. Captain Ryan Hale sat beside the wreck of his fighter, his helmet resting against a rock. His eyes kept moving from the dark horizon back to the figure lying inside the shelter he had built. The Queen. The great THRYLL leader. The one every soldier had been told was the heart of the war. Her body twitched from time to time, her breathing shallow but steady now. She had survived the night, and part of Ryan wondered if she might survive longer. That thought alone unsettled him. He had not expected to keep her alive. He had not expected to feel anything at all when he found her. Ryan had always lived by orders. Orders kept soldiers alive. Orders gave structure to chaos. The moment a soldier doubted, the war swallowed him. Yet here he was, alive only because of luck, staring at the very being he should have destroyed. His weapon rested nearby, and one shot could end her life. The galaxy might even thank him. But he did not fire. Instead, he found himself watching her with a strange mix of curiosity and unease. The THRYLL Queen, even wounded, radiated a strange presence. Her large eyes shimmered faintly in the dim light, not with rage but with something softer. He had seen dying humans before, comrades lost in the heat of battle, and her look reminded him of them, tired, pained, and yet stubbornly alive. Ryan shook his head and tried to clear his thoughts. He had to think about survival. His oxygen pack was limited. His rations could last a few days, maybe a week if he stretched them. But what then? Rescue was uncertain. Both human and THRYLL ships patrolled these sectors. If humans found him with the Queen alive, he would be executed as a traitor. If THRYLL found him, he would be torn apart before he could speak. The smart choice was clear. Leave her. End her life quickly and move on. Yet every time he tried to harden his heart, his hand refused to lift the weapon. Something about this moment felt different, larger than himself. The faint clicking sounds reached his ears again. Ryan turned. The Queen stirred weakly, her antennae trembling as she tried to signal. The clicks were softer now, uncertain, as if she were trying to form words without strength. He could not understand her language, but he could sense the meaning. She was not demanding. She was not commanding. She was asking. Asking for life. Ryan walked closer and crouched beside her. I don't know why I'm doing this, he whispered, though he knew she could not understand his words. But I can't leave you here. He pulled out another water capsule from his survival kit and placed it near her mouth. She drank slowly, her movements clumsy but deliberate. A faint hum escaped her chest afterward, almost like a sigh of relief. Ryan sat back, staring at the black sky through the cracks in the canyon roof. His mind drifted to memories of home. Earth was far away, but he still remembered the blue oceans, the green forests, and the warmth of a sunrise. He had not seen those things in years. War had taken him from one battlefield to another, each more brutal than the last. Sometimes, late at night, he wondered if humans even remembered what peace looked like. Now, looking at the Queen, he felt the same question return. What if there was another path? What if survival did not always mean destruction? The hours passed slowly. Ryan used parts of his wreckage to strengthen the shelter. He scavenged through twisted metal for anything useful: energy cells, wires, food rations that had survived the crash. He patched holes in his suit and checked the oxygen levels again. Each small task gave his hands something to do, but his mind kept circling back to the same impossible choice. At one point, he caught himself staring at the Queen for too long. He shook his head and muttered, "You're my enemy. You've killed so many of us. Why am I even keeping you alive?" The Queen's eyes opened slightly. She did not answer in words, but her gaze held his until he looked away. It was unsettling, almost as if she understood the conflict inside him. That night, Ryan dreamed uneasily. He saw Earth burning, the skies filled with fire, the oceans drying to dust. He saw THRYLL ships raining down destruction, and human fleets falling in flames. He reached for his weapon, but when he fired, the target was not an enemy soldier but the Queen herself. Yet instead of anger, she only looked at him with that same exhausted gaze, as if asking why. He woke drenched in cold sweat, the stars staring down from above. The next morning, Ryan made his choice. He did not speak it aloud, but his actions revealed it. He gathered food from his pack and placed a portion near the Queen. She ate slowly, mandibles clicking faintly. He spent hours clearing more debris so she could move slightly without pain. He found a way to funnel condensation from the rocks into a container, creating a small supply of water. With each task, he crossed a line deeper into forbidden ground. He was no longer following orders. He was helping the enemy. But the more he worked, the more he realized something: she was not only surviving because of him. He was surviving because of her. Without her presence, the silence would have swallowed him. Without her faint signals, he would have drowned in loneliness. The strange bond between them kept him moving when despair threatened to drag him down. On the third day, as he adjusted a panel of wreckage to block the wind, he heard a sound that froze his blood. Engines. Far away but drawing nearer. He scrambled up the ridge and scanned the horizon. Two small ships streaked across the sky, their lights flashing. They were human scouts. Ryan's heart raced. If they landed and found him with the Queen, everything would end. He would be arrested, executed, erased from history. His survival kit carried a beacon he could activate, but if he did, the Queen would not survive. He returned to the shelter quickly. The Queen's eyes followed him, her antennae trembling as if she sensed the danger. Ryan knelt beside her, gripping his helmet tightly. "This is it," he whispered. "If I call them, you die. If I don't, I die." The choice pressed against him like a weight. He had lived his whole life believing loyalty to humanity was absolute. But now, standing over a wounded enemy who trusted him with her life, he realized loyalty was no longer simple. The ships passed overhead without landing, their engines fading into silence. Ryan let out a shaky breath and collapsed against the canyon wall. He had made no signal. He had chosen silence. The Queen tilted her head slightly, her eyes blinking in a slow rhythm. It almost looked like gratitude. Ryan laughed weakly, though the sound carried no joy. "I must be losing my mind." Yet deep inside, he knew the truth. He had made his choice, impossible as it was. He had chosen to protect her. And in doing so, he had taken his first step onto a path that would change not only his life, but the fate of two entire species. The canyon remained quiet, but the silence no longer felt safe. After the human scouts had passed overhead, Ryan knew the search for him was growing stronger. His absence would not be ignored. His squad had already reported him missing, and command would send more patrols soon. On the other side, the THRYLL would not leave their Queen lost for long. Both sides were circling closer, and Ryan was caught in the middle. He adjusted the shelter again, using pieces of his wreckage to cover the opening. From a distance, it looked like nothing more than another pile of broken metal. Inside, the Queen rested, her breathing steadier now. The cracks in her carapace were still visible, but the bleeding had slowed. Her strength, though faint, was returning. Ryan sat near the entrance, sharpening a piece of metal into a crude blade. His sidearm had limited energy left, and he needed every advantage he could prepare. As he worked, he thought about his strange situation. A soldier of humanity, hiding from his own kind, protecting the very creature who was supposed to be his greatest enemy. He looked over at her again. She had shifted slightly, her large eyes open and fixed on him. He almost felt embarrassed under her gaze. "You know," he said quietly, "I don't even know your real name. To us, you're just the Queen. A title. A target. Nothing more." The Queen tilted her head, antennae twitching faintly as if she were listening. Ryan continued, though he wasn't sure why. "I guess to your people, I'm the same. Just another human fighter. Just another enemy." He stopped sharpening the blade and let the silence hang. Talking out loud felt strange, but it kept him from sinking into the heavy loneliness of the canyon. For years, he had fought in squadrons, always surrounded by voices and orders. Now, the only voice he heard was his own. Over the next few days, Ryan settled into a strange rhythm. At sunrise, he scavenged through the wreckage for parts. At midday, he gathered water and checked the perimeter for signs of scouts. At night, he stayed awake to watch the stars, always listening for engines. The Queen remained his silent companion, sometimes clicking faintly, sometimes simply staring. One evening, as Ryan returned from a search for metal scraps, he found her trying to move. She pushed against the ground with trembling limbs, managing only a few inches before collapsing. Ryan rushed forward, his instinct stronger than his doubt. "Careful," he said softly, though again he knew she could not understand his words. He slid his arms under her body and shifted her back into the shelter. She was heavier than he expected, her carapace dense and solid even in weakness. By the time he lowered her, his muscles ached, but he ignored the pain. The Queen's eyes locked onto his, and for a moment, Ryan felt something strange pass between them. Not words. Not commands. Just an understanding. She knew he could have left her. She knew he had chosen not to. That night, he dreamed again. He was back in the cockpit of his fighter, chasing an enemy ship through the stars. But when he fired, the craft did not explode. Instead, it transformed into the Queen, her body burning in silence. He woke suddenly, breath short, sweat dampening his forehead. The stars still shone above the canyon, cold and unfeeling. Days stretched into a fragile pattern. The Queen's strength grew, slowly but noticeably. She could shift her body now without collapsing. Her clicks grew sharper, more rhythmic. Ryan began to recognize patterns. He could not understand the language, but he sensed differences between tones: gratitude, warning, or simple acknowledgement. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Ryan sat across from her and tried something new. He placed his hand against his chest and said, "Ryan." He repeated it, tapping his chest again. The Queen tilted her head. After a pause, she clicked faintly, her antennae moving in rhythm. It was not a word he could repeat, but he understood the intent. She was telling him her name, or at least a sound that represented her identity. Ryan smiled faintly. "So, you do understand me. At least a little." From that night on, he spoke more freely. He told her about Earth, the oceans, the forests, the cities filled with lights. He described his childhood, the first time he saw the stars through a telescope, the first time he sat in a cockpit. He spoke of comrades lost, battles fought, victories that felt empty. She listened in silence, her antennae twitching occasionally as if responding. Though she never answered in words he understood, her presence became something more than survival. She was no longer just the enemy queen. She was a being, alive, vulnerable, and strangely connected to him. But danger never stayed far. One morning, Ryan awoke to the distant echo of engines. He scrambled to the ridge and saw shadows moving across the horizon. This time, they were not human scouts. The ships were THRYLL. Their design was unmistakable: curved, sharp, gliding like predators across the sky. Ryan's chest tightened. They were searching for her. If they found her here, they would not see him as an ally. They would see him as a threat standing too close to their queen. He rushed back to the shelter and looked at her. "They're here for you," he whispered. "If they find us, we're both dead." The Queen shifted weakly, her antennae trembling. For the first time, Ryan saw something like fear in her eyes. She was still too weak to travel far, too fragile to face her own soldiers. If they saw her in this state, they might not rescue her at all. They might end her life to hide weakness. Ryan knew what he had to do. He pulled wreckage panels across the shelter, layering them thicker, leaving only small cracks for air. Then he crouched low beside her, weapon in hand, heart pounding as the THRYLL ships passed overhead. The sound grew louder, then softer, fading into the distance. For several minutes, Ryan did not move. He held his breath until the silence returned. Only then did he relax, collapsing against the rock. The Queen looked at him, her eyes steady. A faint click escaped her chest, a sound Ryan now recognized. Gratitude. He chuckled weakly, shaking his head. I just risked my life hiding you from your own people. What's happening to me? As the days continued, the bond deepened. Ryan no longer thought of her as just the Queen. She was a living reminder of the choice he had made. His loneliness eased when she was near, and though the language barrier remained, he felt their silence carried more meaning than words ever could. But in the quiet hours, when he stared at the stars, Ryan knew the truth. He could not keep her hidden forever. The humans would return. The THRYLL would return. And when they did, his impossible choice would face its greatest test. For now, though, he sat beside her, the canyon walls guarding their secret. Two enemies, sharing the same fragile shelter, hiding not only from the war outside, but from the war inside their hearts. Ryan closed his eyes, the faint clicks of the Queen echoing softly beside him. They were enemies no longer. They were shadows of something new. And shadows could not remain hidden forever. The days passed slowly, yet each one carried heavier weight than the last. Ryan Hale no longer counted time by hours or shifts of light. Instead, he measured it by the faint strength returning to the Queen. Her breathing grew steadier, her eyes brighter, her limbs less weak. She could shift her body now without collapsing, though walking was still impossible. Ryan should have felt relief, but instead he felt unease. Every step she took toward recovery brought closer the moment when their fragile secret would be revealed. He knew both sides would eventually discover the canyon. Patrols grew more frequent, both human and THRYLL ships flying overhead in their desperate search. One morning, Ryan stood on the ridge scanning the horizon. The sky above the broken moon was thin and pale, filled with drifting dust. A line of human patrol ships streaked across, their lights sharp against the dark. Ryan's heart tightened. Command was tightening the net. His absence was no longer a simple report, it was a problem they intended to solve. He crouched low, keeping his body hidden behind jagged rocks. He watched the patrols until they disappeared, then climbed back down to the shelter. The Queen lay inside, her large eyes following his every movement. "They're closer," Ryan said quietly, though he knew she could not understand his words. "Sooner or later, one of them will land." She tilted her head, her antennae twitching faintly. Her soft clicks echoed in the confined shelter. Ryan had learned to read her tones by now. This one sounded like a question, though he could not translate it. "What will I do?" Ryan asked bitterly. "That's what you want to know, right?" "I don't know. If I signal them, they'll kill you. If I don't, they'll kill me." The Queen remained silent, her gaze unblinking. Ryan sat heavily on a broken piece of his fighter wing, resting his head in his hands. The war inside him had grown stronger with each passing day. Once, his loyalty had been clear. Humanity came first. Orders came first. But now, those truths felt fragile. At night, when the stars burned faintly above the canyon, he often thought about the future. He saw two paths, both dark. In one, he obeyed orders and delivered the queen's death. The war might end, but peace would not truly come. The cycle would continue. In the other, he protected her. That path was even darker, for it placed him against his own people. And yet, deep inside, Ryan began to realize something he had never admitted before: he did not want to kill her. Not anymore. The Queen's faint signals were no longer just noise. They were a reminder of connection, fragile and strange, but real. She was his enemy by blood and history, but by choice and circumstance, she had become something else. One evening, as Ryan adjusted the metal covering of their shelter, he heard a sound that froze his blood. Not ships this time. Voices. Human voices. He dropped low and crawled toward the ridge, peering over carefully. In the distance, lights flickered. A small human squad had landed, their suits glowing faintly in the dust. They moved methodically, scanning the ground with instruments, their rifles ready. Ryan's chest tightened. They were close. Too close. He hurried back to the shelter, his heart pounding. The Queen sensed his fear instantly. Her antennae stiffened, her clicks sharp. Ryan grabbed his weapon and checked the energy levels. Only a few shots left. Enough to fight briefly, but not enough to survive. He crouched beside her. "Listen," he whispered, even though he knew she would not understand. "If they find us, I'll hold them off. You stay hidden. Don't move." Her eyes fixed on him, steady and unblinking. For a moment, Ryan thought he saw resistance in them, as if she wanted to fight alongside him. But she was still too weak. She would not survive open combat. The human squad drew closer. Their voices carried faintly through the thin air, sharp and professional. Ryan's training made their words easy to understand. "Scanners show wreckage nearby. Could be Hale's fighter. Command wants confirmation. Stay alert." Ryan's breath caught. They were looking for him. They had come to find their missing pilot, not realizing he was hiding with the enemy queen. The squad's lights glimmered on the rocks. Any moment now, they would see the wreckage. Any moment, they would find the shelter. Ryan's grip tightened on his weapon. His body screamed to obey training, to step out and signal them. To return to his people, to safety. But his heart pulled the other way. If they found the queen, they would execute her instantly. There would be no hesitation, no mercy. And Ryan could not allow that. He crouched low, his mind racing. Then he made his decision. He triggered his survival beacon and hurled it far down the canyon, away from the shelter. The small device blinked and beeped, its signal loud and clear. The squad reacted instantly. "Beacon signal detected. This way." Their voices echoed as they rushed toward the sound. Ryan slumped back against the rock, his chest tight with relief. He had bought time. The squad would investigate the false signal, giving him and the Queen more hours, maybe even days. But the choice he had made was final. He had misled his own people. He had chosen her over them. That night, as the sky glowed faintly with distant starlight, Ryan sat beside the Queen in silence. His hands trembled slightly, but his mind was calm in a way it had not been for days. He had crossed a line, and there was no return. He looked at her and spoke quietly. I chose you. Do you understand that? I chose you over my own people. The Queen's eyes blinked slowly. She made a soft clicking sound, one Ryan had come to recognize. It was the sound of acknowledgement. The following days were heavier. Ryan worked harder than before, strengthening the shelter, preparing food and water with greater care. He knew the patrols would return in larger numbers. He knew the THRYLL would also tighten their search. Both sides were circling the canyon now, and it was only a matter of time before discovery came. Yet through it all, Ryan felt something strange. He no longer felt like a soldier trapped in enemy territory. He felt like a guardian. A protector. One evening, as he sat near the Queen, he spoke again. I don't know what peace means to you. But to me, it means no more burning skies. No more broken ships. No more friends buried under rubble. Maybe you and we can prove something. Maybe we can show them war isn't the only path. The Queen's eyes glimmered faintly. Her antennae twitched, and a series of soft clicks filled the air. Though Ryan could not understand the exact meaning, he felt the intention. Agreement. For the first time in years, hope flickered in his chest. But hope came with a price. On the seventh day since the human squad's search, Ryan awoke to a low rumble shaking the canyon. He rushed outside and froze. A fleet of human ships filled the horizon, their engines blazing as they descended. This time, there would be no escaping. He returned to the shelter, his heart heavy. The Queen watched him, sensing the change in the air. They're here, Ryan whispered. And this time, I can't hide you. I'll have to stand against them. He gripped his weapon tightly. He knew the truth. He could not fight an entire fleet. His strength was not in victory. His strength was in sacrifice. Ryan looked at the Queen one last time. If I fall, remember this: I chose you, because I believe there's more to this war than death. Maybe one day, they'll believe it too. The Queen tilted her head, her gaze unblinking. She clicked softly, a tone Ryan had never heard before. It was low, steady, almost solemn. He felt its meaning deep inside, though he could not explain it. It was not farewell. It was promise. Ryan turned toward the canyon entrance, the engines of human ships roaring louder above. The path of sacrifice lay before him, and he stepped onto it without hesitation. For the first time in his life, he was not fighting for orders. He was fighting for something greater. And the galaxy would soon feel the weight of his choice. The sky above the broken moon blazed with engines. Human ships filled the horizon, their formation tight, their weapons ready. Dust and stone shook loose from the canyon walls as the fleet's roar grew louder. Ryan Hale stood at the entrance of the shelter, weapon in his hands, heart pounding like a drum. He had known this moment would come. He had known from the moment he chose silence, from the moment he shielded the Queen, from the moment he misled his own people. Now the final test had arrived. The Queen stirred behind him, her strength far greater than when he had first found her. She pushed herself upright, her limbs steady though still marked by cracks and scars. Her large eyes fixed on Ryan. She knew, just as he did, that the next few hours would decide everything. Ryan adjusted his helmet and checked his weapon. It's over, he whispered. They're here. And I can't let them take you. The ground trembled as dropships descended into the canyon. Their lights swept across the rocks, cutting through the shadows. Soldiers poured out, their armor gleaming, rifles raised. Ryan recognized the insignia on their shoulders: his squad's fleet. His people. A voice boomed across the canyon through loudspeakers. "Captain Ryan Hale. You are ordered to step forward immediately. Surrender and identify yourself." Ryan's chest tightened. He had trained under these voices. He had followed their orders for years. Now, those same voices demanded his surrender. He stepped forward slowly, keeping his weapon lowered but visible. The soldiers spotted him instantly, their rifles locking on target. The loudspeaker boomed again. "You are under investigation for desertion. Drop your weapon and surrender at once." Ryan raised his voice, letting it echo across the canyon. "I'm alive. But I'm not surrendering." Murmurs passed through the squad. Confusion flickered in their movements. He was one of them, yet he was defying them. The Queen shifted inside the shelter, her antennae twitching nervously. Ryan turned slightly and raised his hand, signaling her to stay hidden. He took a deep breath, then faced the soldiers again. "You came here for me," he called. "But there's something you need to hear. Something more important than orders, more important than war." The soldiers hesitated, their rifles still trained on him. The commander stepped forward, his voice sharp. "You are speaking against command in the middle of combat space. Choose your words carefully, Hale." Ryan's voice grew louder, stronger. "I found her. The Queen. She's here. She's alive." The squad erupted in shouts. Weapons clicked, energy cells hummed, soldiers tightened their formation. The commander's voice thundered. "Then end her now. Do your duty." Ryan's heart pounded, but he did not lift his weapon. Instead, he raised his arms high and stepped aside, revealing the shelter. The Queen emerged slowly, her tall figure casting a shadow across the canyon floor. The soldiers froze. Some trembled, others shouted warnings. Their rifles lit up with targeting beams, dozens of red dots painting across her body. Ryan shouted over the chaos. "Wait. Don't shoot. She's not here to fight. She's wounded. She's weak. And she's not what we've been told." The commander barked an order, but Ryan pressed forward, his voice cutting through the noise. "Listen to me. I've been here with her for weeks. I've seen her. She's not the monster we were told. She's alive, just like us. She breathes, she suffers, she hopes. I spared her life, and she spared mine. If we kill her now, we end nothing. We just continue the same endless cycle." The soldiers faltered. Their rifles wavered. Confusion spread like wildfire. Ryan took another step forward, his helmet reflecting the fleet's glow. "I know my words sound like betrayal," he said, his voice shaking but steady. "But I've seen enough war to know it doesn't end with victory. It ends with understanding. And maybe, just maybe, this is our chance." The Queen stood silently behind him, her antennae low, her eyes calm. She made no move to attack. Instead, she emitted a soft series of clicks, low and steady. The sound carried across the canyon, echoing strangely against the stone. Ryan lifted his hand. "She's speaking. Not in commands, not in threats. In surrender." The soldiers exchanged uneasy looks. Some lowered their weapons slightly. Others tightened their grip. The commander hesitated, his visor hiding his face. Then, the Queen raised her head and released a long, resonant hum. It carried far beyond the canyon, rising into the sky, vibrating through the air. At that same moment, the THRYLL ships appeared on the opposite horizon. Their engines glowed, their formation tight. Both sides had arrived. Both sides faced each other across the broken moon, weapons primed, fleets ready to fire. Ryan stood between them, his body the only barrier. He raised his voice to the sky. Stop. Both of you. This war doesn't need another battle. It needs a choice. Right here. Right now. The silence that followed was heavier than any sound. Fleets hovered. Soldiers held their breath. The galaxy seemed to pause. Ryan's voice broke the silence. I am just one man. A soldier. A pilot. Nothing more. But I risked everything because I believed she deserved a chance. I believed there's more to us than destruction. If I can see that in her, then you can see it too. End this war. Let this be the first step. The Queen lowered her head and extended her limbs in a gesture Ryan did not recognize, but he felt its meaning. Submission. Offering. A sign of peace. The human soldiers stared. The commander's voice cracked through the comms, uncertain for the first time. Stand by, do not fire. The THRYLL ships slowed, their weapons still glowing but not yet releasing. The Queen's hum continued, soft and unbroken. It was not a call to arms. It was a call to silence. Minutes passed like hours. Then, slowly, the soldiers lowered their rifles. One by one, the targeting beams faded. Across the horizon, the THRYLL ships dimmed their weapons as well. Ryan exhaled shakily, his knees nearly giving way. The impossible had happened. For the first time in memory, both sides faced each other without firing. The commander's voice finally spoke again. Captain Hale, you will be taken into custody for questioning. But your actions may have changed something greater than yourself. Ryan nodded. He had expected as much. His path had never been about safety. It had been about sacrifice. As soldiers surrounded him, the Queen clicked softly behind him. The sound was not fear, not warning. It was acknowledgement. She understood what he had given for her. Ryan turned his head slightly and whispered, just loud enough for her to hear. Live. That's all I ask. Live, and show them what peace can be. The Queen's antennae lowered in solemn agreement. As they led him away, Ryan lifted his gaze to the stars. For the first time in years, they did not look cold. They looked like possibilities. The war was not over. Peace would not come easily. But the first step had been taken, not by fleets or governments, but by one human fighter who chose to risk everything for hope. And in the endless stories the galaxy would tell, that choice would never be forgotten. Ryan Hale's name would live not as a soldier who obeyed orders, but as a human who dared to believe in something greater. A legacy born from sacrifice. A legacy that would change the galaxy forever.